Police forces in and around Ferguson have spent tens of thousands of dollars in recent weeks to replenish their arsenals. Things like rubber bullets, smoke bombs, and tear gas. And on Monday, the state's governor declared a state of emergency. All of this to prepare for the possibility of violent protest. I talked about what kind of message that sends with Dr. James Peterson. He's director of Africana Studies at Lehigh University.
You have to understand that for the young people who are fatigued and who are tired and who are looking for simple justice in a situation like this, that presents the government in a very, very particularly antagonistic way. And it's very, very difficult for us to, one, not remember those indelible images, but two, for the people on the ground not to respond to the kind of militarized police presence that they're going to have to contend with just to have their sort of civic duty. You know, they want to protest because they feel, and a lot of us agree with them, that there's been a miscarriage of justice here. And the fact that we're not going to have a normal jury trial to sort of wrestle through and work through the facts here, even the possibility that we're not going to have a normal jury trial is really antagonism enough. When you add to that this militarized police force, the state of emergency, and just the images of how that looks, it's an antagonistic situation.
The unrest is having an impact on businesses in Ferguson. Some have boarded up, others have closed, in some cases indefinitely. I want to read you something from Sarah Kenzior. She's a journalist at the website Quartz, and this is her quote. "The culprit is not protest. It is a lack of investment and in support for black communities, a pattern that has been replicated itself in the region for decades. Protest did not destroy Ferguson. Destruction, social, economic, and political, created the protest." How true is that?
Well, as you know, Sarah's been on the ground there for some time. She's an incredible journalist, and her thoughts about this, I think, are absolutely accurate. I mean, I would add a few things to this, right? I mean, obviously, there's municipal misrepresentation or a lack of representation. There's this sort of shifting demographics over the last decade or so, what we might refer to as white flight, and the changing demographics of that particular region. There is a sort of socioeconomic underdevelopment that's not just peculiar to Ferguson, by the way. That happens in a lot of different sort of sprawl kind of towns that we see in suburban areas close to major cities, but underfunded by a variety of different municipal policies. And so when you put all those things together, that's kind of a sort of a collision of a lot of different factors. Once race is thrown into that, this is where you get into these sort of powder keg kind of situations.
Dr. Peterson, there's this mantra that's been going on all across the United States, hands up, don't shoot. That's because some witnesses claim the victim here, Michael Brown, had his hands up to surrender when he was shot by Officer Darren Wilson. I don't know if you've seen it, but there is a new billboard which people are trying to put up near Ferguson referring to the protesters, and it reads, "Pants up, don't loot." Some call it nothing more than thinly veiled racism. What is this exposing about America? Does America need to have a frank discussion about race? I mean, what is this saying in your estimation?
Well, we've needed to have a more frank and honest discussion about race for a long, long time now. It needs to be a sustained discussion with multiple participants from a variety of constituents. You know, that billboard is disgusting to me. And it does sort of speak to and really unveil some of the racial fault lines in this particular case. I think what's hard for people outside of Ferguson, outside of St. Louis County, outside of Missouri to kind of understand is that there are a number of people who support Officer Wilson. This idea that the looting, which was a very small part, a minuscule part of what took place in Ferguson in response to these issues, the idea that that is what people are out there to do. Those people are not out there to loot these stores. I can understand business owners wanting to board up their places of business because there has been some unrest, but the preponderance of the activity that has taken place in response to the Michael Brown shooting has not been looting. But there are some people, sadly, who just perceive it that way. This is about a militarized police force responding to civil unrest that's in response to the unarmed murder of a black teenager.
Dr. Peterson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.